Yo, Mats, quick question.
Go on.
Last video, you covered the starter characters.
Yeah.
So where are the actual good characters?
I mean, that's a little rude.
Yeah, well,
If you're new here, I'm Matt, and for almost a year now, my team and I have been building what we think could become the first anime FPS game on Roblox. By the time you're watching this, I'll have uploaded 3 videos, my full year devlog, my February devlog, and a video explaining our first 3 characters. That last video mainly covered our starter characters, but it's definitely worth checking these out later if you want more context on how we made this game. Right now we have 6 characters in total. You can unlock them by rolling, and before matchmaking you can select any character you own. Each has their own playstyle, strengths, weaknesses, and weapons, so the goal is for every character to feel different depending on how you'd like to play. When ranking the characters by rarity, we already covered the 2 starters, as well as the remaining most common one, so in this video we'll be covering all our rarest characters. Starting off with an epic character, Yusaku. Yusaku is probably the second most recognizable anime-inspired character, aside from Vergado, who we covered in the first video. If you didn't watch that one, just know that each character has 4 unique elements: a primary weapon, a secondary weapon, an ultimate, and a character-specific passive. Yusaku's primary actually used to be his secondary, but it was so good we felt like we had to swap them. His primary is a slingshot that shoots fireballs. We call it Ember Sling. The fireballs deal good base damage, but they also apply a burn effect, which continues damaging opponents for a few seconds. What I personally love about this weapon is that the fireballs bounce, so kind of like Ryuya's bow, you can go for some really cool bounce trick shots. His secondary is a pretty basic slingshot that fires little pebbles. I mean, we literally named it Slingshot, that's how you know it's basic. It has a pretty steep drop off, so you can't really use it at range, but it fires rapidly, so it's clearly meant for short range fights. But where Yusaku really starts to get interesting is with his ultimate. He has this powerful slingshot, Green Sling, that shoots plant seeds. If you hit someone directly, it spawns vines on that player and it'll slow them down. But if you shoot anywhere else, that seed turns into a plant turret that automatically shoots at opponents. It might only deal 5 damage per hit, but it's so annoying to play against. Imagine fighting someone while these little plants are constantly shooting at you, while your actual opponent is also pressuring you. It just puts you at a huge disadvantage. A nice little detail too is this base we added when the plant spawns on a wall. I actually showed the full process of making this weapon in my first video, but it's so cool I feel like I have to show it again. We start by modeling the plant itself, then it gets raked and animated. Once that's done, the implementation starts. At first, it just looks like these placeholder green boxes, but eventually that gets replaced by the full animated model. Then we stress test it with like 100 plants to make sure the game can actually handle all of it without bugs, and that's pretty much it. Again, quick side note, when making an anime game, we have to balance taking inspiration from existing characters without directly copying them. So if you notice some differences, that's completely normal, and something we kind of have to do to keep the game up. Either way, Yusaku has an ultimate that you can't directly control, since the plants shoot automatically. However, the ultimates of other characters do, so let's move on to our second rarest character with legendary rarity, Lucifer. Lucifer can be really powerful, but when designing him, it was obvious he had to be one of the more rare characters, simply because he's much harder to play than others. His kit takes a lot more accuracy compared to some of our more spammy agents. His primary is called the Revenant. It's basically a revolver that deals 20 base damage, which goes up to 40 on headshots. It feels really nice to use, but of course you need good aim. His secondary is called Crimson Blades, and that's because it's actually 3 individual knives that you throw. Each hit deals base damage as well as bleed damage for a few seconds. So if you land all 3, it can deal up to 60 total damage. Now that might sound insanely strong, but the truth is, it's really hard to hit, let alone land all 3. The blades have a slightly unusual trajectory, and they obviously travel slower than bullets, so you either have to predict movement really well, or be close enough to reliably land them. The ultimate, however, is a lot easier to use. It's this shadow dog attached to his arm that actually bites opponents. It used to be a little weak because it's a melee ultimate, so if your opponent just ran away, well, you wouldn't be able to use it. But after asking our community on how we could improve it, we decided to give it a small teleport feature. So now you can routinely teleport to your nearest opponent, which makes it a lot better. And now we're on to our final character, the rarest one of all and exotic, Aurelia. She's definitely my favorite character. She has a super cool Ice Queen vibe, but she's also easy enough to play and has some unique mechanics that add a lot of depth to her kit. Starting with her primary, she fires these ice shards, and they do solid damage whilst also being fairly easy to land. We called it Frostburst. So, as you can probably tell, it has this burst fire aspect, which is probably the only thing that really takes some getting used to. But of course, this is our coolest character, So just doing damage isn't enough. When you hit someone with a shot, they also get slowed down a little, and the affected player can see a freeze effect on their screen. Now moving on to the secondary, which is a melee ice axe called Glacial Edge. Kind of like the shards, it deals base damage, but also fully freezes your opponent and traps them in this ice block. Now, you might be thinking, hold up, that's way too OP. And yeah, it is really strong, so we made it a little less broken by allowing frozen players to still shoot. So they're locked in place, but not fully helpless. Even so, that still gives you a huge advantage, because a player that can't move is obviously much easier to hit, especially if you're going for headshots. The axe also has another purpose. You can see this control prompt in the middle of the screen. By right-clicking, you can spawn an ice blast. That's mainly a movement mechanic because when you activate it, a large ice shard spawns beneath you. So you can use this to catch yourself as you're falling or to ramp up towards your opponent. It just allows you to move around in more creative and unpredictable ways. Finally, we get to the ultimate. It's arguably the best one, and it's definitely the sickest. It's this ability where a cloud literally spawns and floats above you. Wherever you aim, the cloud follows and shoots in that direction. So if you're fighting someone with this ultimate, you definitely don't want to stand too close to your teammates because you can both get lasered by the huge range of bullets coming from the cloud. Now we've covered all the characters, but there's one mechanic I haven't covered yet: passives. Passives are basically small buffs that make your character better in certain situations. A lot of them are generic, which means any character can get them. I already covered them in my last video, but they range from increased speed to double jump to extra damage or healing. But on top of those, every character has one character specific passive. So going back to Yusaku, he has the soul perception passive. This means that once you hit someone, he can see that player's outline. That gives you a big advantage because you can line up predictive shots or know where they're going when they're trying to escape. When it comes to Lucifer, he has the life steal passive, which lets him regain health as he deals damage. It's basically a blood leech effect where some of the damage you do gets converted into healing, obviously at a reduced rate. And finally, Aurelia has the healing aura passive. Once she hasn't been hit for a few seconds, she starts healing again, which is honestly kind of insane and might need a nerf. Not only that, but she can also heal nearby teammates. Now when it comes to these three characters, you might think some parts of their kits are either too weak or too strong. And honestly, you'd be right. Making unique characters also makes balancing way harder, and that's exactly where you can help us. We're always looking for people to come test the game and help us make it even better. So if you're interested or just want to be one of the first people to play once we release, definitely join our Discord server. Also, let me know what you think about the characters down below in the comments, and as always, subscribe to this channel as well as my new dev channel, and I'll see you soon.